Every railway has a story, every engine has a legacy, and every era leaves tracks behind. From forgotten characters to controversial changes to the moments that shape Thomas and Friends forever, this is a series where we go deeper than the episodes themselves. So welcome aboard to Beyond the Finish Line, the documentary-style retrospective series here on Thomas and 1984, where we deep dive into the stories, characters, history, production, and legacy of the railway we all grew up with. I'm your host, Kaleb Marshall, and today we're going beyond the finish line. Remember the CGI era of Thomas and Friends? The faster animation, the smoother movement, the brighter colors, and the massive shift that completely changed the identity of the series forever? For a lot of fans, the CGI era started with Hero of the Rails in 2009. But what if I told you the transition actually started years earlier? Before the fully animated engines, before Nitrogen Studios took over, before Season 13 completely reinvented the franchise, there was an experimental period. A weird, awkward, and honestly fascinating transition era that a lot of fans either forgot about or never even knew existed in the first place. Today, we're going beyond the finish line to explore the hidden origins of the CGI era, from the earliest series animation tests to Season 12's controversial hybrid format to the risky decisions that changed Thomas and Friends forever. So how's it going, everybody? And welcome back to the Beyond the Finish Line podcast here on Thomas Fan 1984. I'm your host, Kaleb Marshall, and today we're diving into one of the most overlooked turning points in the entire history of the franchise. And honestly, this episode's going to be a little different, because not only are we talking about the early CGI experiments, this episode is also the beginning for something new. Episodes 4, 5, and 6 of Beyond the Finish Line are actually going to act as backdoor pilots for a brand new spin-off series called Tracks Through Time. A brand new retrospective series where I deep dive into the seasons, eras, movies, and evolution of not just Thomas and Friends, but possibly other franchises too. And alongside that, I'm also going to be reviving two older ideas for the channel. Well, the one is a new series, but I think I've talked about it maybe once on the channel. It's called Songs of Sodor, a series where I break down the music and songs throughout the franchise and evolution. Now, if you've been around this channel for a long time, you might remember Evolution from years ago, back when it was mostly simple edits with just music and images and with the text on screen. But now, I'm completely reinventing the same format, reinventing the format using the same documentary style storytelling and retrospective format as Beyond the Finish Line. So yeah, big things are coming to the channel. So, like I said, I'm going to be bringing Evolution back, but it's going to be in the same format as Beyond the Finish Line, because I believe, I feel like Evolution, if I was to bring back the same format, the old format, it'd feel too outdated. And honestly, I was watching back on some of the episodes, or some of the, I guess not really episodes, but some of the videos of Evolution, and honestly, I'm just like, this feels so outdated. Like, this is my old editing style, but now I got, this new style, and this new way I make my videos. I'm gonna revamp and reinvent Evolution into the, into like more, into, the documentary style storytelling series like Beyond the Finish Line. And honestly, I feel like that's way better, because the whole, point of Beyond the Finish Line is, to kind of have the same style of series as like The Unlucky Tug's Thomas retrospective, and that's kind of what Tracksuit Time is going to be about. I might possibly do other franchises, like I said. I really need to get back into uploading Bob the Builder again and Fireman Sam again, and things are not just Thomas, but the one I'm really excited for is bringing back Evolution, because what I'm going to do in that series, I'm just going to, I'm gonna, like I said, revamp the series completely, and I'm going to, I know what to say, I have it at the top of my head. I'm going to actually go into detail of each season of Thomas and Friends, with Thomas, I'll talk about how he started out, and then season 2 I'll talk about what changed, if there were new faces that they used in scenes and stuff like that. I'm gonna do it that way. So yeah, like I said, big things are coming to the channel. But for now, let's rewind the clock back to 2007. So, Part 1, the end of an era. By the time Season 11 rolled around in 2007, Thomas and Friends was already changing. The classic model era had lasted for over 2 decades. Miniature sets, physical engines, real lighting, real smoke, real water. There was a charm to it that made the series feel timeless. And by this point, fans thought that the model format would continue forever. But behind the scenes, things were beginning to shift. Technology was changing, children's television was evolving, and CGI animation quickly became the industry standard. Around the same time, other children's franchises were making similar jumps. Fireman Sam would fully transition to CGI in 2008. Bob the Builder would later follow in 2010. And eventually, Thomas and Friends would too. But unlike those shows, Thomas didn't jump straight into CGI overnight. Instead, the franchise entered a strange experimental phase. And it all started with one surprisingly random episode. Part 2, Thomas and the Stinky Cheese. Yes, seriously, Thomas and the Stinky Cheese. An episode from Season 11 that most people barely even think about today. But behind the scenes, it quickly became one of the most important episodes in the history of the franchise. Because in 2008, Nitrogen Studios reportedly used the episode as an early CGI test, with that CGI test being on screen. Not a fully animated remake, not a finished production, but a proof of concept. A test to see whether Thomas and Friends could realistically survive the jump from physical models to digital animation. And honestly, that's kind of insane to think about, because at the time, fans had absolutely no idea what was happening. Season 11 was still fully model-based. Everything still looked normal on the surface, but behind the scenes, the future of the franchise was already being built. And that's what makes this period so fascinating to me. Most people talk about the CGI era itself, but hardly anybody talks about the years of experimentation and transition that came before it. This wasn't just an instant switch. It was gradual, careful, and honestly kind of risky. Because if this transition failed, it could have completely damaged the whole franchise. Part 3, Don't Be Silly, Billy. Now, here's where things get really interesting, because Thomas and the Stinky Cheese wasn't the only episode connected to the early CGI experimentation. Apparently, another season 11 episode was also involved in CGI testing, and honestly, this one surprised me even more. Don't Be Silly, Billy. Yep, that episode. The infamous Billy episode from 2007 that introduced one of the most divisive one-off characters in the entire model era. Is that word? Divisive. Okay. Now, for years, fans mostly remembered this episode because of Billy himself. The loud personality, the hyper energy, the bossy engine stuff. And honestly, Billy became one of those characters people either found annoying or weirdly memorable. But behind the scenes, the episode might have played a much bigger role in the future of the franchise than anybody realized at the time. According to information and production material released years later, storyboards were apparently created for both CGI recreations of Don't Be Silly Billy and Thomas and the Stinky Cheese during the early Nitrogen Studios testing period. And that's honestly fascinating, because when you really think about it, this episode actually made perfect sense as a CGI test. Billy is an extremely expressive character. He moves fast. He overreacts constantly. He's energetic, chaotic, and those kinds of exaggerated facial expressions and movements were exactly the kinds of things CGI animation would eventually become known for. The model series can only go so far physically, but CGI opened the door for so much more expressive animation. And honestly, I think that's part of why these specific episodes were chosen for testing. Not because they were the most popular episodes, but because they pushed movement and facial performance in ways that could test the limits of what the future series might look like. What's also really interesting is that some fans have noticed alternate shots and refilmed angles in Don't Be Silly Billy itself. Different camera placements, different facial positions, different steam effects, different scene compositions, and while not every single one of those changes were necessarily CGI related, it does add to the feeling that the production team was experimenting heavily during this period. This wasn't just a franchise standing still anymore. This was a franchise actively trying to reinvent itself. And honestly, that's why I think this era deserves way more discussion than it gets. Because most fans just jump straight from model era good to CGI era happened. But there was an experimental middle ground in between. A period where the franchise genuinely didn't fully know what its future was going to look like yet. Personally, again, I think this is one of the most fascinating periods in the history of Thomas and Friends. Now, as of recording this, I haven't found any videos of Don't Be Silly Billy, like the test run thing, or the test video, like Thomas and the Stinky Cheese. If I find it, I'll put it on screen. If not, I'll just do storyboards. Now, I know in the Rebecca episode, I didn't really have a need to put stuff like that on screen. But for this episode, I feel like I need to, because, I'm actually talking about it, and, and it's actually, footage of stuff I can use on screen. So, okay, as of recording this, I just have one of the pictures, and I might just use a picture, like to kind of help start out or I'll use it somewhere. I might use it somewhere in this script, or in this video. but it's just an image still from the CGI Thomas and the Stinky CGI animation. It's Thomas Diesel and Sir Topham Hatt and Sir Topham Hatt's helpers. So, yeah. Also, guys, in season 1 of The Journey Never Ends, there's going to be a Billy and Charlie focused episode. And I'm also possibly going to do, like, Norman and Dennis, and then, like, other... and also want to, give some more other, some other characters, their own, related characters that never appeared together. I want to give them their own stories too. So that's what I'm going to do with that. So let's move on to part 4. And this is where I'm going to talk about something that is more talked about than anything else that we've so far covered, but it still does not get as talked about as it should. So, part 4, the movie that changed everything. Now, eventually, all of these experiments led to something much bigger. A movie that would redefine the future of Thomas and Friends. Hero of the Rails. And honestly, I don't think people will realize just how important this movie really was behind the scenes. Because originally, Hero of the Rails was not supposed to be fully CGI. In fact, according to interviews and production information released years later, the movie apparently was first developed during the season 12 era as another hybrid production, just like season 12 itself. Meaning, yes, there was originally going to be a version of Hero of the Rails with physical models, CGI faces, CGI humans, and the season 12 hybrid style. Now, I know, I don't know if there's actual real footage out there, but I know the one original logo, whether or not, I don't think it's fan made, because I think it was on, like, early toys for the series. I'm gonna put it on screen. I know what the logo looks like. I don't have it, like, while I'm recording this, but I know what it looks like and stuff. So I'm gonna put it on screen. If there's anything else, you guys will just see it on screen. Okay. But like I said, there was gonna be a version with Hero of the Rails with physical models, CGI faces, CGI humans, the season 12 hybrid style. And honestly, that alternate version of the movie is one of the biggest what-ifs in the history of the franchise. Because if that version had actually happened, the CGI transition might have looked very different. Early promotional material even showed Thomas using the season 12 hybrid look. And apparently, face casts were even created for Hero, Victor, and Kevin. I do remember seeing images of those. I'm going to put those on the screen. Okay, so face casts were even created for Hero, Victor, and Kevin before this production fully switched directions. But eventually, Hit Entertainment made this decision to go all in on CGI. And honestly, a huge reason for that seems to have been budget. The hybrid model and CGI process was expensive, complicated, and probably difficult to maintain long term. And I think that's actually why a lot of these shows like Thomas, Bob the Builder, Fireman Sam, and others went CGI, because of budget, and also because CGI, was the next big thing, during late 2000s, early 2010s. I think that's also kind of why all these, models, whether or not they use stop motion like Bob the Builder, or I'm trying to remember, did they use stop motion for? I think they did use stop motion for Fireman Sam as well, or the model series with Thomas. I think that's why a lot of them went to CGI, because of budget. According to production information, fan interviews with former staff members, the cost of continuing to build the models and combine them with CGI effects simply became too much. So instead, Hero of the Rails became the franchise's first full CGI production, and that is what truly changed everything, because this wasn't just another special anymore, or another movie. This was the beginning of an entirely new identity for the series. New animation, new production methods, new storytelling possibilities, new visuals, new camera movement, a whole voice cast. And honestly, whether fans liked it or not, there was no going back after this point. What's especially fascinating to me is that you could still kind of see traces of the older vision hidden inside the final movie. The story itself honestly feels structured somewhat like a model or a special, and honestly, it does. It actually does. Certain scenes feel like they were originally imagined for practical sets. Some shots feel smaller in scale, and even some pacing feels closer to the late hit era than the later Nitrogen seasons. Now that I think about it, Hero's the model before he was fully black, with it be blue, purple, green, and whatever else. That kind of feels like that would be something they do in the CGI or in the model series. I feel like they would make a model of that. And going back to the faces, I know I've seen the face cats for Hero and Victor. I don't know about Kevin. I will look it up after I'm done, when I'm actually editing this video after I'm done recording. And if so, I'll put them on screen back when when I was talking about that. But it's almost like the movie exists halfway between two completely different eras of Thomas and Rich. I think that was kind of, what they were going for anyways. Okay, this is a bridge between CGI, full CGI and the model series. And honestly, that's what makes this whole transition period so fascinating to study. Because unlike most franchise reboots or animation changes, this was an instant, unlike All Engines Go, or even the new series. But the new series I feel like it's going to be way better than All Engines Go. But it was gradual, messy, experimental, awkward sometimes, but also incredibly ambitious. And personally, I think that's why this era deserves so much more. No, this era, deserves so much more discussion than it gets. And again, with all this, I mean, thing is though, even with All Engines Go, there, and the new series, there have been, early tests, CGI tests and stuff for the series. They had that one clip on YouTube of All Engines Go, the early pilot animation, early animated style pilot. Or I don't know how to word it. You guys know what I mean, though. So even whether or not it's the CGI era or All Engines Go or the new series that's coming out, they're still they still have stuff that probably that might not be. It might look different now than it does later on, and later on it will be the final product. So, and I honestly, now that I think about it, I think even the image of Thomas, that very first image of Thomas that we got on All Engines Go, that was also I think that's even different than the final series. I feel like it is. I think it is. Now last episode I had 4 parts. I think episodes 1 and 2 I had 5. This one's got 6 because I wanted to cover Don't Be Silly Billy as well, and then the movie, and then yeah. So let's get on to part 5. Part 5, the strangest season of them all. Then came 2008, season 12. And honestly, even now, this season feels surreal, because this wasn't the full CGI era yet. The physical models were still there. The sets were still there. But suddenly, the faces were CGI. The humans were CGI. Harold was CGI. And the result was one of the weirdest visual combinations this series had ever attempted. You had these beautiful crafted practical models mixed together with late 2000s digital animation, and fans really did not know what to think. Even back then, season 12 got a lot of criticism. A lot of fans hated the CGI faces. Some thought the animation looked uncanny. Others felt like the show had lost part of its soul. And honestly, I understand why people felt that way. But at the same time, I honestly think season 12 gets way more hate than it deserves, because people forgot what it actually was. It wasn't supposed to be the final product. It was an experiment, a transitional season, a testing ground. And without season 12, the full CGI era probably wouldn't have happened the way it did. You can literally see the franchise trying to figure out itself in real time. And honestly, that's fascinating. And with that, it does deserve more hate, or it gets more hate than it deserves, because it was, along with Hero the Rails, season 12. Well, if anything, season 12 is more of a bridge between the two eras, the model era and the CGI era, than Hero the Rails itself is. And that's what gets me sometimes. It's like, season 12 was so bad, it was so weird, it was so awkward, it was so uncanny. It's like, no. I mean, honestly, I honestly think that season 12 is underrated, but because of all the hate it gets and stuff. But it can be overrated, because of the hate. Anyway, let's move on to part 6. Part 6, the leap into full CGI. Then finally, 2009 arrived. 2010, I believe, for the... well, the thing is, I've always known it as 2009, but I think it might have been the US. It was 2010 for CGI, but still, 2000 arrived, season 13 arrived, and with it, the full CGI era officially began. No more physical sets, no more model engines, no more miniature environments. Everything was now digital. Now, what I think kind of differentiates season 13 from seasons 14, 15, and 16, season 13 is that, going back to what I was talking about before, with Hero the Rails kind of feeling like it was, some of the some inspiration taken from the model series. I feel like season 13 was that way as well. But season 14, 15, and 16, I feel like they didn't even really try. Season 13 kind of, and for that reason, I think I would, if I had to rank the 4 seasons of the Miller era, I would put season 13 at number 1, I think season 15 is actually kind of the worst for like. No. I think I'd say season 15 is the worst. So I put season 14 at number 4. Season 16 I'd put at number 2. Well, yeah, because that kind of paved the way for like the Brenner era. Season 17, and then season 14. It's got to be number 3 because not as bad as season 15, but it's still got a lot of the same. The Unlucky Tug said that a lot of the episodes in season 15 are the same. They are. Season 14 not so much. So season 13 would be so the way I'd rank the seasons, the Miller seasons. Season 13 is number 1. Season 16 is number 2. Season 14 is number 3, and season 15 is number 4. Just because it's like, that's just my best to worst, in my own opinion. Your opinion might be different. You guys, I think that season 13 is the worst. Honestly, though, I think the whole Miller era, it all had loads of potential, but season 13 has to be the best season, at least in my opinion. Again, like I said, that has to be the best of one of the Miller era, because they actually knew what they were doing in season 13. Season 14, 15, and 16, it just seemed like they were trying to rush through, I mean, I don't know how they, if they up to what they were trying to do, but the only downside with like season 14 would be Misty Island Rescue, because I think that was actually released the same year as, yeah, it was. So that was released the same year as Misty Island Rescue, or as season 14. But again, like, season 14's got some pretty solid episodes, like the Lion of Sodor, and all these others, and, I can't remember what episode it is, but like Toby's New Whistle, is that season 13? And like, those are the kind of episodes I'm talking about too. It's like Tickled Pink, Victor Says Yes, the other two I just said, Tickled Pink and the other one. That other one I just said. Toby's New Whistle, Tickled Pink, Victor Says Yes, and The Lion of Sodor. Like, those are all, like, you can tell they weren't trying to reuse stuff in those episodes, because those are all, kind of, their own episodes. With, like, the Logging Locos episodes, I can't remember, that was season 14 or season 15. They had, I believe it was, I can't remember who exactly it was, but, like, they had separate episodes. It was like Thomas and, or not Thomas, it was like Emily, and it was Emily with one of them. Maybe it was with the twins, Dash and Dash. But, like, those few episodes, those are the same. Like, those, like, it seems like they just took the script of one of them, rewrote it, and they're like, okay, this is a good, solid, base here. We're just gonna tweak them a little bit, call them their own episodes, even though they're basically the same thing. And that's like that big downfall of, especially of, that was episode 14 or 15. In fact, I think it's 15. Yeah, that's another reason why I kind of feel like season 15 is the worst out of the 4. But anyway, let me get back to what we were saying about this stuff. I just wanted to tell you guys about that, tell you my own opinions on some of the stuff too, because that's what this whole series is about. Like, I'm talking about like the show and stuff in general, but I'm also telling you guys about my opinions. So, okay, let's go back. So yeah, we stopped off at everything was now digital, and also whether fans liked it or not, Thomas and Friends had entered a completely new era. Now, obviously, this episode isn't isn't gonna go get a fully deep dive into CGI or into the CGI itself, because that's actually what episode 5 is about. Episode 6 will be so episode 5 will be about seasons 13 to 24. So I'm gonna do like the full CGI era. And hold on, guys, I'm shutting my door. But episode 5 is going to be about that. Like I said, episode 5 is going to be season 13 to 24, and then episode 6 is going to be seasons 1 to 12. So, just letting you guys know that. And then episode 7, I'm thinking about, I don't know if it'll be like a necessarily backdoor pilot, maybe it will. I just don't want to have too many backdoor pilots. I mean, they don't necessarily need to be a backdoor pilot, so they're just like the episodes will be related to the new series. I'm thinking about doing like that one, Trek Through Time, and then I don't think I'll do like episode 8, but like eventually, once we once we know more about the new series, I'll do a deep dive into the new series. But for now, I think I'm just gonna. I mean, I could if I wanted to, I could have 5 different, for 4 different backdoor pilots, because I'm thinking, I'm gonna, like, in the new series Trek Through Time, I'm also gonna go into detail of, like, all engines, with all engines go, as well, so, yeah, but that's a story for another day, because today's episode is really about the Forgotten Beginnings, the awkward middle phase, the experimental years, transition before the transition. But what makes season 13 so important is that it proved the risk that actually worked. The animation became more dynamic, the engines became more expressive, the camera work became more cinematic. The engines got their own voices. Again, like I said, and I know at this point some of the well, I mean, look at the Japanese stuff. They had voices since season 1, but I'm talking about like I know some of these, some of them. It's like episode 12, season 12 and season 11. I know some languages, they already had their own voice actors. And the engines had their own voices by then. And that's another thing that's kind of a little weird about season 12, is that, like, the engines and characters, or the engines and humans and Harold, they can all move around and stuff, but they're all voiced by Michael Brandon in the US and Michael Angelis in the UK. Which with like season 11 and before, that is not anything, there's nothing weird about that, because they're all models. But just like seeing the mouse moving and then the narrator voicing them, it's kind of like, it's a little, it just feels off. But suddenly, Thomas could do things visually that the model series simply couldn't. Now, did the CGI era lose some of the charm from the classic? Did the CGI era lose some of the charm from the classic years? Honestly, yeah. I think a lot of CGI era fans would admit that. But I also think people overlook just how ambitious this transition was. Because without these experiments, without season 12, without those awkward test phases, this franchise probably wouldn't have survived into the 2010s at all. Hey guys, this is the outro, and honestly, that's why I wanted to make this episode, because people talk about the CGI series all the time, the CGI era, but they rarely talk about how difficult the transition actually was, the uncertainty, the experimentation, the risks. This wasn't just a visual change, It was a franchise trying to reinvent itself in real time. And whether you love the CGI era, or hate it, or fall somewhere in the middle, you cannot deny its importance to the history of Thomas and Friends. But now I want to hear from you. What do you think of Season 12? And the whole era of, with the early tests, pilots and stuff, and also, what do you think of the CGI era as a whole? Did it deserve the hate it got, or do you think fans were too harsh on it? And what are your thoughts on the early CGI transition overall? Be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this if you enjoyed this episode of Beyond the Finish Line, don't forget to subscribe, turn on post notifications, and stay tuned, because next time we're going full CGI. Trust me, there's a lot to talk about. We're talking about the full season 13 to 24. So that video might be longer like this one, because because this one is 40 minutes long. That one might be that long too. But I don't want to have to do that. It's like, I don't want to have to break it up into 2 parts. Speaking of parts, I know I haven't done the... Okay, guys, so I know I haven't done the Gordon's Great Race retrospective parts 2 and 3 yet. I think I said that I was going to actually split into 3 parts. I know I haven't. I might not even. Honestly. Maybe I will. Either way, I'm gonna just tell you guys now that whether I do or not, that episode won't come out until at least episode 8, if not after. Because like I said, I'm gonna do the episode 7 is gonna be, I'm gonna discuss all Engines Go, because why not? So at least, episode 5 is, we're gonna talk about all the CGI. Episode 6, we're gonna talk about the model series, the model era, and then All Engines Go. So now, well, actually, hold on though, because with like Hero of the... Okay, hold on. I think I'm gonna split it this way. So I'll do season 1 to the Great Discovery for the model series episode, and then I'll do Hero of the Rails to season 24 season 12 to season 24 for the CGI era one, and then all Engines Go. All these are just talk about the full series. So yeah, all 4 seasons. Actually, I haven't watched much of All Engines Go. I think I've only seen like maybe the first 26 episodes of season 1, and that's it. But I've seen clips and stuff of like all the other episodes, so I know. I mean, I'm up to date. I've been up to date on everything. Like, I know Duck appeared. Have not been living under a rock. I know Donald Douglas were originally supposed to appear, but they didn't. And all they got were toys. Actually, no, it was just Donald. It wasn't even Douglas. But still, yeah. Okay, so speaking of which, if I ever get a Donald, like, say I get 2 Donalds, 2 All Engines Go Donalds, I'll make a custom Douglas, All Engines Go Douglas, and I think some people have already. Maybe that'll be a video I make. Either way, I'll see you guys in the next video, and until next time, this has been Kaleb Marshall on Thomas Fan 1984. I'll see you guys beyond the finish line. Bye for now. Have a good one. Now, obviously, episodes 5, 6, and 7, I already have them planned out. But if you guys want to request an episode for episode 8, or any episode for the season, I don't know why you do it for any episode. Just request one for episode 8, or actually no, you don't even have to request one for a certain episode. Just request one, And if I like if I like it enough, if I like that idea enough, I'll talk to you guys about, or not talk to you guys, but I will do that episode. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next episode. Trying to think if there's anything else that I want to talk to you guys about. Well, this is my longest Beyond the Finish Line episode yet. Now, I know these have all been like longer than 20 minutes. According to Great Race retrospective is actually short. At least part 1 is, because that's 26 minutes. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye for now. Well, yeah, and that's the thing. Like I like doing these longer episodes like this. You know, because it actually gives me time to deep dive into all these things. But yeah, like, subscribe, turn on your post notifications, comment what you guys want to see on the channel, even as a whole. And I'll see you guys in the next episode, and in the next video. Bye for now. Now, okay, I keep saying stuff. I am thinking about doing a Fireman Sam video. Like, it's gonna be the intro. It's like, I'm gonna do like my own extended intro for like season 14. No, it was different. It was just season 14, season 15. They changed the rescue team. That's actually an official, I guess it's an official, fully extended 1 minute 36-second Fireman Sam theme song of the rescue team version, or the rescue team theme song. So I'm thinking about doing that. So yeah, and then obviously, with whatever. Now I know this is Beyond the Finish Line. It's Thomas Bandit. I mean, Thomas is already in the logo. But if you guys want me to, I'll start doing deep dives on other shows, including, Bob the Builder, Fireman Sam. I've never really watched it, but I'll do like My Little Pony. Hell, I'll do even like SpongeBob SquarePants. And not just even like animated either. I'll do like, Victorious, iCarly. I've always loved those shows. Jessie, Bunked. Yeah, but yeah, I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye for now. I'm just gonna end it this time. Turn on your post notifications, please. Bye for now.